Yeah. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm actually going to be joined by a special guest today. It's the first in a series of some episodes. I'm going to have some guests. So this week we're going to have my friend Nathan. We're going to talk about intention and purpose, and then following that, we're going to get some people talking about some more pieces of the flow funnel. So for those of you who still don't know who I am, I'm Daniel Mangena. I am a speaker, an author. Uh, I do some creation stuff. I generally basically empower people to live more abundant, joyful, purpose driven lives. And I do that through intention setting and creating alignment. I have a model called Beyond Intention and a framework called the Flow Funnel that basically creates a nice order within which we can actually start creating more grooviness in our lives. On that journey, I've been speaking to you guys over the past couple of weeks around the pieces of the flow funnel. What we're going to start doing now is starting to put that together and have another level of conversation around what reality creation is. Today, my friend, my co-host, my fellow adventurer on the journey of reality creation, Nathan. And today we're going to start talking a little bit about intention, about purpose, who the master of purpose. Whenever there's anything around purpose, I'm like, Nathan, you gotta. And we've had some great conversations. We're also co-creators along with our friend Queen Io of a show called The Trifecta of Transformation, which we do live every few weeks normally, but there's been a bit of a hiatus. Nathan is a speaker, an accomplished speaker. Nathan, you haven't got a book yet, have you?
I am actually working on one.
Good. He's a soon-to-be author. He's a coach and just an all-round badass. He's a walking quote machine. There's always there's a quote vibe, blah, 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 blah. But he's great. And I'm really excited to share him with you today, guys. So hi to you who are joining live. I see Kim, Kerry, Amy, and Becca have commented. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. You know, I'm crazy about the old comment stuff. As always, there's going to be a gift at some point. Because Nathan and I are prone to sharing goodness over a period of time, I will not be doing a visualization today. But if you've missed any of the other episodes of the show, then go back and check out what we've been doing some visualizations in the past. But today I'm going to be talking intentions and purpose with my friend Nathan and starting to weave this into the work that we've been doing around reality creation. Hey, also to you, Kate. So Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nathan, guys, we've been blessed because Nathan was like, oh, you know, I've got a lot going on. Is it on another time? I was like, no, Nathan, it's a set window of time. You have to come. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Exactly like that.
Except a bit more manly sounding because we're both lads. Nathan, let's get into it. What the fudge is purpose?
Oh, wow. You know, one of the things I usually say, we don't have to philosophize about it. You know, it's just that whole walking quote thing, right? I call myself a philosopher, Daniel.
I missed that one.
Yeah, no, we don't have to philosophize about it. I usually bring it down to the simplest term, and it's exactly what you find in the dictionary, and that is the reason for which a thing was made. Right? Ooh. The reason for which it was created. It's why, right? So in speaking, one of the examples that I tend to use is a spade, right? A spade, we go back to the dictionary again, it is an instrument used to dig or lift bulk materials. However, we've watched several movies, at least each one of us has seen at least one movie with which a spade was used to whack somebody in the back of the head, right? That's not what it was made for, but it can serve other purposes. However, when we come right back to it, a spade, the reason it's sold in a store is to lift and dig and lift bulk material. So our purpose is the reason for which we're here. The reason for which, if you believe in a creator, the reason which a creator made you. If you believe in Darwinian theory and of evolution, then you got to ask yourself, why did I evolve to become what I am today? So it boils down to purpose, reason, why. I hope that helps.
It does indeed. So what we're talking about is what we're here to be.
Oh, it's so purpose also implies function and use, right? So yes, it is not only what we're here to be, right? A spade is made to be a spade, of course. It wasn't made to be a hammer. So what we're made to be, but also what we're made to do. Because we come down to it, we're human beings, but we also have work to do as human beings. So it's two-pronged, a state of being, which I'm sure you can really connect with that from the metaphysical manifestation standpoint, right? We just have to be. It is what we're being. But in the process of that being, we're also going to do certain things, right? So it's two-pronged, being, but it starts with being, right? We can't be that other than what we were made to be. And then in the process of being that thing, we should ask, okay, now that I know I am this, what shall I do with this? And so it's both passive and active in the same vein.
So essentially what we're saying is that for purpose to be fulfilled, there is a doing that follows the being.
Correct. Because I think when we come down to it, there's this standard existential question that exists, which is why? Why are we here? Why does all of this exist in the first place, right? So if we come to understand first what we are, so we'll start with consciousness, awareness, right? Because that's where it all starts. It's self-awareness. If we extrapolate to the beginning of the universe or the God and all of that stuff that we talk about, is the universe, God first knew that he was, right? And that was that whole philosophy thing. I think, therefore I am, right? So I have to ask myself first, what am I? This thing that thinks, okay, this is Nathan. I have a body. I'm here, but sometimes I feel like I'm not here. Okay, I've got some qualities, the state of consciousness, of awareness of what I am. And then I say, okay, I am what I am, and I know what I am, right? And as Paul Selig would say, and I know how I serve. So you see, there's multi-facets to it. So it's okay, I am now. I exist. I'm able to affect things around me. So I've got power. Okay. Now, what shall I do with what I am?
So for me, my work tends to be, where do we go from there? And how do we deliberately step into that in a way that honors the fact that we're not made to suffer. Suffering is not part of nature. It doesn't have to be a struggle. Nature operates in flow. And nature is abundant, so that doing aspect from that place of purpose just happens in a total grooviness. And the reason why I really wanted you to come to the show is because one thing that I found on my journey of supporting people through that creative aspect, through Beyond Intention, through the flow funnel, whether it's through Micro to Millions or anything, is not knowing what to create. I even had a coaching call with someone today, and that's where we're at. We're at the beginning of our journey together around creating abundance. But before even thinking about the abundance, we're looking at, what do I want the abundance to create more space for me to experience? And before that, why the hell am I going to choose those things anyway? And when coming from a place of purpose, there is a fullness and a support in where that comes from that I found unmatched in anything else, in terms of aligning yourself with divine order, in terms of being supported by the universe, in terms of getting there and actually being happy at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I'm very, very happy to have you here to discuss a bit more about purpose. I'm going to
Absolutely.
invite the audience as well. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to chime in with that, please, please, please do pop them in the comments. Kate wants to know who's that on the on the wall. It's Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah. The So I've got Nikola Tesla and I've got Edison across from him. So if you know their history, I can hear them arguing sometimes. So yeah, yes.
Love it. But again, hi to everyone watching live.
And it is a it's very typical, that experience now where a person wants to create something. And I'm glad sometimes a person reaches this impasse. It's actually a good thing than saying, okay, I want to make $1 million, or I want to earn $1 million, and then running off to the first thing they see, e-commerce or this or that and the other, just because they have this goal of earning a certain, dollar amount. And I usually say that's an absolutely big mistake. So there's a particular step. There are particular steps that I encourage anyone to follow. And also, when I work with people, I have them follow, is because first we start from the conscious mind, right? Then we move into the subconscious mind, and then we express what's in our subconscious. And so the first thing I would do, of course, is, what do you want? Right? So that person is at that stage right now where they realize, oh, Dan, I would like to live a certain way. I would like to, earn a certain amount of income. Mm-hmm. The question now is, what direction do we take? Right? So direction has to be one of the first things. What direction do we take? And that is why Rumi said, if you run east looking for the sunset, you'll never find it.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wait. Say that one more time.
If you go running east looking for the sunset, you'll never find it, no matter how far and how fast you run. Right? Because the sun does not set in the east. So this is a very important place that this person is, because what I tend to find is people will run in the entire opposite direction and go start, a makeup business and this and that and the other, or, whatever, when their entire being is pointing in a different direction. So they must really figure this thing out. What do I want? Right? And that's really when they have to go. Purpose is found in the heart. It's not found in the head. They have to go back into the heart to try to decipher this thing, right? Purpose is a function of the soul. The soul lives in the heart. The soul will speak to you in silence if you're trying to find it. However, fortunately, the conscious mind can tap into the heart, can tap into the soul. And so, of course, you've come with these, we come back to these standard things now, which a lot of people now know, is to find what brings you joy, what your bliss is, what you would be doing if you actually did earn that $1 million or $10 million. What would you be doing? That will typically give you some glimpses to your purpose. However, there are other things too that you can do, or that person can do, which would be to go into their personality and try to find out what their inclinations are. Okay, so there are two classifications. I really like the way Ainsley McLeod put it in his work, which was actually a channeled work also, and the guides really spoke a lot about purpose. And they broke it down into two distinct things, which I always get people to be aware of. First thing is gaining awareness of what your soul type is. Your soul type.
Okay, we're going to need to loop back round to the soul type thing. But go.
Okay. Gaining awareness of your soul type. And then the second is gaining awareness of your soul mission. Okay. When you gain awareness of those two things, you can never lose your way. You will never lose your way, because the reason is this. Okay, so before I move forward, did you have a question about soul type?
Yeah, I'd love to know more about soul types. Talk to me. What's a soul type?
Okay, so the soul type is the core propensity of that being, of that soul, that what they are. Okay, so there are several soul types. I'll give you an example. You've got the teacher soul type. Okay, you've got the leader, you've got the spiritualist, you've got the educator, you've got the caregiver. There are some that are the hunters, right? You've got the transformer soul type. So when you know what your soul type is, okay, it's not necessarily what you can't necessarily take a personality test and find it. You're going to get wrong answers, because what happens is when we move into the realm of psychology, some of your personality, or what we already know, your personality is a mask, and it is influenced a lot by upbringing. That does not necessarily speak to what your soul type is, right? So I'll give you an example. In my case, my soul type is actually that of a teacher. It's what I do. I don't care if you meet me at the gym and you say, hey, Nathan, can you show me how to do this? The way I'll actually help you is completely different from the way some people would help you, right? I want to teach you the principle of how to do this thing. So next time when I'm not there, you know exactly what to do. And when I work with a person, like literally when I'm done helping someone at the gym, they were like, dude, are you a personal trainer? Can you train me? I'm like, no, I just wanted you to understand what was going on. But I have a certain knack for teaching and explaining. And so it doesn't matter what I do. What I found is I have this common thread of teaching that runs across every aspect of my life. Every aspect. If I'm teaching a 6-year-old, I'll get along with them. I have rapport every single time, right? So the person needs to find out what is my soul type. If you are the person who always takes care of the sick people in your family, and you're a nurse, right? And everybody just comes to you when they're broken, right? Or they're hurt. Well, you may be a caregiver. You may have that soul type,
Tammy
right?
asked that question: Is caregiving a soul type?
Yes, so there is a soul type of a caregiver, and so the soul type also has traits. So the caregiver soul type would have these traits, would have nurturing. Okay, so that's a primary focus, and that's another way to figure it out. So it goes a little bit deeper. You may, even if you don't know if you're a caregiver soul type, but you just notice that nurturing is a primary focus of yours, right? And then you layer it with things like empathy, right? Because you can't really say you're a caregiver if you're not empathetic. You layer with empathy and loyalty. Those things will typically point to that soul type. Going back to mine, for instance, that of an educator or a teacher, my soul type is usually, so you'll find out, eloquence, right? The teachers are usually eloquent, and they sometimes get a little wordy, right? But that is a trait, or those are traits that makes it possible for them to be able to do that which they do. That just comes out of them naturally, right? So my first public speaking thing was at church. I was 6 years old in a room of 120 people. I did not think twice about it. It came naturally to me.
I've got a similar thing.
Right.
Just put in front of people.
When these people start looking for those things. So for instance, the nurse, for instance, the person who's a caregiver. Let us say this person is a client of yours, but they say, you know what, Dan, I don't want to work in the hospital anymore. It would be a mistake for them to go think, man, I'll go trade stocks and I'll be happy. Right? So yes, you don't want to work in the system that you've been working in the whole time, but what shall you do, or what can you do that will give you more life, right? Based on your soul type. And so when you can figure out your soul type, say for instance, the leader soul type will usually has charisma, and they just have a tendency for people to follow them, or wisdom, right? The transformer soul type is more of it's a combination of what we call a spiritualist soul type and that of a leader. So the transformer is not necessarily the leader. Gandhi was a transformer, actually, and Martin Luther King were transformers, right? So these guys were not necessarily, they don't necessarily want the spotlight, but people follow them anyways, right? Jesus was a transformer. So you when you start looking at those things, and you can chart the course clearly, and you know what the soul type is. Now you move to what your soul mission. Now the soul mission is basically what the soul had chosen for in this lifetime to have you come do.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Before we hop on, there's just a couple of questions here that the chat's been popping off. So because I think they're still on the soul type.
Okay.
So if we just get through those, and then we'll come on to the soul mission. So I want to come to Kate's question. Do you agree with the power of the words "I am" gratitude? Do we as humans enhance or detract with the vibration of language?
Do as humans enhance or detract with the vibration of language and joining wisdom? Well, we'll start with the first part. Yeah, of course. Remember, I began by saying the awareness of self, right? I am is really self-consciousness. It is self-consciousness when you can extrapolate it to the highest form of it is universal cosmic consciousness, where you say, I am all things, right? You usually start with, I'm Nathan, and you say, I'm Dan, right? But then later on we say, oh, I am human. We're both human, and then it elevates and it elevates. You say, oh my God, I'm everything. So yes, I am is your individual awareness of what you are. Realize I said in the beginning, I said when we start with this awareness of what you are, right? The more your spiritual practice, or the more your level of consciousness rises, the more expansive your awareness of I am becomes, your awareness of what you are. And guess what? The more expansive that becomes, the more powerful you become in creation. Because then you are limitless. I can go out there and I can do this. It is our smallness that usually limits our manifestation, our creation, is it not? Right? Dan says, oh yeah, you can go do this and do that. You're like, Dan, I don't know if I can. And that's because you're denying some of your essence. But if you knew I am all things, then you will follow your bliss. So yes, I am is indeed that statement of fact, but going with gratitude, yes, I am grateful. But here's the thing, Kate, let me give you this. What I do is try taking I am beyond the awareness of self and take it into the essence of the thing. So for instance, instead of saying I am grateful, I sometimes will say I am gratefulness, because it is the essence of gratitude. I am gratefulness.
I wish I had like a sound effect.
Instead of saying I am, forgiven, I say I am forgiveness. Because when you embody that thing, embodiment is the highest level, right? So I am, instead of saying I am abundant, I am abundance. Abundance itself, because then that covers everything, right? And so I try to take it back to what Troward called the spirit of the thing, the essence of the thing. And the essence lies behind abundant to abundance. And so I use that I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part of her question, but I hope that helps.
Well, it was just, do we as humans enhance or detract with the vibration of language? But I think we'll be in agreement that that's a yes.
Master thought and language will be irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning was the word, and the word was. So the throat chakra begins the journey of manifestation, because the thought becomes the vibration, that becomes the emotion, that becomes the will, that binds with the will, becomes the action, and then the experience. So
language is just a denser form of that energy. And that's why I say when you master thought, language will be irrelevant, because Rumi said, when the silence calls, he said, language is like a stream and silence is like an ocean. And he says, when the ocean is calling you, you do not walk into the language of the river, right? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, silence and your thought, and does not even the Bible itself say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks? So mm-hmm. when you can master what's in the heart, whatever is going to come out of your mouth will be beautiful. But even when you do not open your mouth in language,
people will feel it.
Yes, because there is what we call inner sounds. Mm-hmm. The inner sounds, that's why you can hear yourself thinking. And so yes, but yes, what we say, the vibration is very important.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Katie also said, can we be various soul types outwardly and then inwardly?
Yes and no. So there is a primary soul. So your soul type is fixed, but however, because it's like, at least in our present space here, realize that although we are masculine and feminine, we have to express one. Okay. And then we just say, okay, you have male and female. So the teacher soul type is a teacher. However, well, that's where we come to the soul missions and traits. So you have primary traits and you can have secondary traits. Okay. And those are the traits that you can't be, a teacher and then be a leader at home. It doesn't work. You're one soul type, and that soul type typically is consistent through your life. Okay. But your soul missions could change. And then you also have focus. So your soul focus could change, but the soul type is fixed. Okay. And that's across the board, and everything that I've seen, the people that I've observed, it's pretty much fixed, because the kid who was a leader from 6 years old, who becomes the president of the country or whatever, if you observe them at 6 or at 3, they had the same propensities.
It was a continuation.
Right. Those kids, there's some of those kids who are born and you're like, this toddler is intense, right? And that's because that's the energy that the soul pushes out right from day one. And that tends to stay consistent over time. The mission and the traits, however, are slightly different.
Thank you very much. Got just a lot of love in the comments. So thank you for that. Got Becca saying, love that. We've definitely got some positive feedback from that. So guys, please do keep hopping in the comments and letting us know your questions, if this is resonating with you and how things are going on. Once again, I'm Daniel Mangena, Dreamer CEO, joined by a special guest, Nathan Akpan, a teacher by Soul Design. We're here talking about intention and purpose. Nathan just broke down about soul types, which has blown my mind a little bit. I'm looking forward to some direction where I can learn a bit more about that, Nathan. And now you are going to move on to talking about soul missions.
Okay, so just to go back to her question there, in a lifetime, the soul has that soul type. The soul can choose to be a different soul type in a different lifetime, right? So after you're a leader, you could say, okay, I've learned the lessons of leadership and I've mastered that. I want to go be a caregiver. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then that would be your soul type in that particular lifetime. And knowing, I don't know, what your background is, but knowing, if we know that our soul is expressing itself in many different aspects as we speak, then it would only make sense that the soul focuses on what, this soul type in this life, because there are other permutations of us that are expressing other soul types, if that makes sense.
So are we talking about like interdimensional expression and the fact that essentially we are a singular oversoul that's expressing in different strands? I know we weren't really going down this rabbit hole today,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, yes. There. If we even let's bring it back to basic physics, right? Where now where the concept of multiple realities is basically semi-mainstream, and so it only stands to reason from a pure scientific standpoint that the soul is playing itself out in a different way in a different life. I've had people who have done past life regressions, which is really just a parallel timeline, and they say, "Oh, I'm a farmer over there," right? That's a whole different conversation. But the main thing to note is that in this life, you're going to be what you are. Now, next time around, you're going to be something else if that is what the soul chooses. However, the soul, after there's certain souls, after having lived so many lifetimes, begins to develop a preference for one soul type. Okay? They begin to develop a preference, so they will always come back as a teacher, right? So some of these souls that had came through have been teachers. The Christ was a teacher. He came as a teacher, so they just tend to have that propensity to repeat. And then that is why you have guides, spirit guides, and all sorts of archangels and guides, some of them. That is why not every spirit guide teaches, right? The ones who teach through channeling or whatever, that's just what they do. They're teachers. Paul Selig's guides, that's all, that's what they do. Others may just be guardian angels. So those could be the leaders, the ones who are, who are transformers, who are meant to keep the order, or the caregivers elevated, right? And so you'll pick your type and then just fall in that groove as the cosmic order advances.
Love it.
So moving on to
soul missions.
Soul missions. Here is another hint here with soul types. It was funny because some of these things occurred to me, over the years of obsessing over purpose, and then you run into certain material that confirms. I'm like, yay! But it's so funny. Isn't it cool how sometimes your intuition is confirmed? You're like, wow, I actually did get that right all these years, But I would say that purpose is a double-edged sword in a good way. Both sides have a function. So there is what we call an outward-facing purpose. Outward-facing and inward-facing purpose, right? So knowing that everything is meant to be in service, we can't just come to Earth and say, okay, I'm just going to learn my lesson. I was here to learn a lesson. No, not that. Yes, you came to learn a lesson or experience something, but at the same vein, you're also in service to others. So there are two things. What lesson or what mission? So it's an inward-facing mission and an outward-facing mission. Again, using myself as an example. The teacher is also on a mission, at least for me, of awareness, of learning. How best can you learn something than to teach? Right? Because the teacher has to learn it 5 times more before they can teach it, before they can share it. So there is an inward-facing purpose, but then in the process of teaching, you have to master a lot of things. You have to master compassion, empathy, and all sorts of things that comes with that. Humility, mastery of self, so all these people are trying to be coaches and this and the other. Being an entrepreneur is hard, right? Because it's going to force you to develop certain traits. So that inward-facing mission, that's the lesson for you. And then the outward-facing mission is the lesson for others. I'll use another example. People who have experienced trauma. Some people say, oh my God, how in the world could I have set myself up for this? right? How could this have been my choosing? I don't see it. But there's two reasons. Dan, go ahead.
But here's what I love, because we've started to come back to an idea that I love to remind us of, is that everything's connected. And as you, for someone, we have chats all the time, you know, I always love to bring it back to nature. And in nature, nothing is self-serving. It's all moving towards the whole. There's a universal ecology. And when even we look at things running out of quote unquote balance in nature, it's normally because man in its infinite non-wisdom comes in to try and impress itself into that flow. And so this thing that you're sharing about, you know, we always have to be in service. I was reminded of the fact that that's just our way of contributing to the overall universal ecology that's going on across dimensions and different levels of density and the whole way.
Oh, absolutely. And purpose is this came to me. It's almost like a lotus, right? You can't see, you know, I saw it as a lotus in the chakras, and that's why as you advance in consciousness, you know, end up with 1,000-petaled lotus. But the thing is this: purpose is not one-sided. Purpose is not just your job. Purpose is not just the lesson you came to learn. Purpose is multifaceted. Okay. But in a very simplistic way, it's two things. You came to experience something fairly specific. As of experiencing that, do a service to others. So going through that example of trauma, that person, that soul came to experience that, okay? You see, and then you might ask yourself, why the heck would I want to experience this? Well, you understand how much empathy comes when you experience a thing. Can an oversoul or a spirit guide and this and the other, I know some of the guides haven't lived physical lives, but they still are trying to understand what it feels like to be human through our experiences, right? So now you say, okay, you set yourself up and you say, I'm going to come in and I'm going to live in this particular situation. I'm going to choose these parents and I'm going to go through this whole thing. And you go through it and you're broken. I wonder what that soul wanted to learn. Perhaps the soul wanted to experience what it felt like to be broken, and also what it felt like to try to put yourself back together. This awareness of putting yourself back together is a powerful thing, right? But then in the same vein, because that is more about yourself, but in the same vein, how many people do we know who have gone through crazy stuff and have powerful stories that changes the lives of 10,000, 1 million people? Because that is your service to others. Is that ability to transform, to heal, to lift others through your experience. You would never have been able to do that if you didn't have that particular experience, right? And so it is multifaceted. It is also in collaboration with the people who co-created that experience with you, regardless of what you think of them, right? So that person, let's bring it back to soul missions clearly. That person was most likely on a mission of healing. Isn't it funny that when you're trying to heal yourself, you heal all sorts of trauma, and oftentimes it goes back generations, right? And you want to, you feel into it,
and also changes the game for the future generations,
right? But isn't it also funny that that same person is usually in tune to healing others, right? And so I mean, on one of my notes here, let me read this for you on the mission of healing. When directed outwards, this mission is aimed at making others feel better. When directed inwards, it is aimed at healing the self. It is not unusual that many healers had themselves had to get healing before they could serve fully. This also applies to people in the health professions, right? A lot of that, the most empathetic of them are usually the ones that had an issue. How many people do you know who said, my son, my daughter had this, and I just went down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, it was like Lorenzo's oil and like a couple of things. And now, even down to I was in Dallas last summer, and a chap was speaking about the fact that I think it was in Illinois or Michigan, it was his brother that fought to allow CBD to be used for their child, and therefore it led to the legislation change that allowed it to be something that means that right now millions of people
Right.
are able to find healing
Right.
because of them having a child that went through that, and them going up against that and creating a
Yeah.
change.
So check this out. The parent had a purpose. The parent had a maybe a purpose. So there are multiple soul purpose. I'll read out here to you. Okay, so you've got number one, you've got a mission of change. Number two, mission of exploration. So MLK was a leader or a transformer type on a mission of what? Change. It was pretty simple. You could, a blind person could tell this dude was just here to change the world. He finished his job, he died. Mission of exploration.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Right? And some people's death is what triggers transformation. George Floyd, anybody?
But
call him whatever.
Here's a thing that's just coming up now. It's that we start talking about exit points, and
it's a whole different story.
And we start talking about choices that we make. Because one of the things that sometimes people get mad with me when, like, everything's a choice. Consciously or unconsciously, you're making the choice. When we go a bit further down the rabbit hole, at some level, you're making the choice, whether it's unconscious, superconscious, soul conscious, karmic consciousness. There's always a choice being made. And when we are zoomed out and see more of the playing field, we are better able to discern what that choice is and what that choice changes, even if we can't see it in our everyday conscious lives.
Correct. I always liken it to being in difference between living on the first floor of a high rise to living on the 50th floor. The person on the 50th floor can see what's going on more than you. You could hear noise and you're like, what's going on? That person can see 3 blocks down the road and say, oh yeah, it's all good, right? And so as you rise in consciousness, and also, higher levels and higher densities of your being, at some level you set this thing up, right? But I wanted to go back to, before I read the soul missions here, the child, the example you gave was most likely on a mission of, what do you call it? Let me see. My brain just went off. Mission of reliance. Imagine what it would feel like to be a king, a leader, people catering to you left and right. You would never lack for anything. Would not a soul say, I wonder what it felt like to not be able to walk? Wonder what it would feel like to not have anything. To rely on somebody for when you get up, for when you have to shower, when you eat. So the child, especially for instance, somebody who has a debilitating illness, or some of these kids are born with a particular condition, most likely on a mission of reliance, because it takes a reliant person to give somebody else the gift of giving and caretaking. If nobody was willing to be reliant, who would be the caretaker? Right? Because then we have a symbiotic relationship. It's almost like two souls, two spirits say, hey, I wonder what it feels like to be a caretaker. And the other soul says, how about we find out? I'm going to be the one who is dependent, and I'll have you take care of me and see how that feels, right? Because I too have been wondering what it feels like to be handicapped. And this is why in many families, right, they have what we call soul groups. It is said that these souls travel many lifetimes together. The person was a mother this life, becomes a daughter next life, and they switch roles, right? Sometimes the person who abuses you was your husband in the last life. And that is why it is necessary. Yes, the human heart and the human ego does not understand it, but when you start to see it more, you're like, oh gosh, right? Because sometimes that person who did you wrong has given you one of the biggest gifts, because for many, our breakthroughs come from those low points.
So what we're
right?
talking about is an opportunity to completely reframe our experience of forgiveness, our experience of pain, our experience of trauma, our experience of relationship, our
Right.
experience of engagement. Because when we go up in the elevator to a higher floor and move into a new apartment, we
Yeah.
can see, oh, the reason why there was all that noise that was hurting my ears is because there was a fire.
Yes, and to know more, it was Ray Dalio that says when he goes into a particular situation, he always asks himself, "What do I not know?" It's almost like he says, I picture myself walking into a forest and ask myself, "What do I not know? What do I need to know?" If it doesn't make sense to us, okay, so from a higher spiritual perspective, they say everything is perfect, it's perfection. If in our smallness we don't feel like it is, then there's something we're missing. So we should always ask ourselves, what am I missing? Okay, what do I need to know? And the more you know, the more it makes sense, right? But it is also a message from a purely business standpoint not to compromise anything for your mission. Don't do it. Don't compromise. Don't say, okay, I could make this money, and then I'll come back and I'll do this. No. And that is why it's very important, especially for that client of yours, to really go where the heart leads. Don't compromise. Because when you start to compromise, you will find yourself keep compromising until you lose your way completely. When the individual is anchored in purpose, that's why purpose is your anchor. I always refer to that also. Because in the turbulent storms of business life and discouragements and this and that and the other, that's the only thing that will ground you. There have been many times where I'd always wondered, well, should I go do this instead? Should I go do that instead? You have no idea how many people have said, Nathan, why didn't you have a YouTube channel? You could be doing fitness stuff and this. I mean, you'd have all these followers. Yeah, I could easily do it because I know my stuff in that arena. But I always say, that's not my work. That's not my work. It's not my work, right? So you must always know your work, because that is what is going to keep you grounded. When something seems so tempting, you're like, let's not do that. That would not make me happy, right? And so then after you know your work, you know your purpose, then you can march on and at least know there's no question. Doesn't matter how many years I spend trying to figure this thing out. I did not make the wrong decision, right? Because I was always in my bliss. One last thing on that one. It was that question Steve Jobs said. He said, if today was going to be the last day of my life, would I be happy to do what I'm about to do now? If your answer is no, don't do it. I started a Shopify store way before Shopify started became cool. I made sales. I was like, gosh, no. If this thing becomes successful, I don't even think I'll be happy. Right? I projected. I saw myself. Why? Like, okay, a couple $100K a month. Will I be happy? No. So then let's not even start. Let's not complicate our lives by starting something that you'll get attached to. So many people walk down that path. And I always say, don't make the mistake to be good at something you don't want to do. People work jobs that they're good at, but they hate it. They know it's not what they're supposed to do, right? That would be likened to me starting that Shopify business. And I'm like, dude, you're making $1 million a month. You're doing this, you're doing that. But I know this is not why I'm here on this earth. That's misery.
Do you know, this actually lines up to Becca's question. So we come for a purpose and not everyone connects with that. The trauma aspect in putting ourselves back together, is that relative to being taken off our path because we're taught as humans by some who don't connect to their purpose and we forget? This is a question from her own experience.
I'm not. Could you, Dan, could you try to explain that question to me if you get it? I want to make sure I get it.
It looks like, and Becca, please do let us know if we're getting this wrong. It looks like sometimes we may be pulled off of our path because we were, for example, raised in an environment that didn't recognize the importance of purpose. And we end up experiencing things like trauma, needing to bring ourselves back together as a result of that, like a byproduct of being off path.
I mean, in terms of the lessons we learn in life, you really have to sit down and think about how fundamentally that changed you. Now, there are two things with trauma and experiences like that. One of them, the soul already chooses its predetermined path, right?
Hmm.
It chooses what it is that it wants to come in and experience.
Hmm.
And if all things being equal, it's going to experience it. And that's why the soul also chooses the right conditions to make that happen. You didn't end up in that family by mistake,
Hmm.
right? Because if I have a mission to for healing and for to experience these things, and I put myself in the most loving household, well, I just failed because that's not going to happen, right? So the soul will choose the right conditions, the right co-creators
Hmm.
to ensure that that experience occurs.
Mm.
And even those co-creators are also learning their lessons in their own way,
So
but they're also
quantum
being in service
overload.
to you, right? So you must remember they're being in service to you. Now, that's one. The soul pre-programs it. You come in, you do your thing, everything goes as planned. The other is the soul comes in and you came in, you say, the soul says, I want to be a catalyst for change. I want to help create a massive, stuff for a bunch of people. But you come in and you get distracted from that purpose and you go a different direction. Okay. You'll say your soul wanted you to become a doctor, a physician, and then you get distracted and you had started this little shoe business, in high school, and your shoe business just takes off. Well, what has to happen is the soul also sets up contingencies, and you also have guides who will do something to ensure that you're like, oh, I've got to go this direction, right?
Mm.
So those are just basically redirects that do occur sometimes. That could be you who has the kid who is sick. And
Mm.
every doctor says your child's going to die. And you say, no, this kid is not going to die. And you start researching and you research and you say, screw it, I'm going to med school. And
Mm.
voila, you're back on the path,
Mm.
right? So it's one of two things. Either way, it's either you're following it as planned, or others the soul kind of has to give you a nudge to get back to that path. Unfortunately, some people also come to a particular lifetime and they don't get the work done. Hence, they come back and they try again,
Mhm.
right? But our job is to get it done. I personally say, every human existence is fun, but if this is what I'm here for, let's just do it. There's no
Mm.
point repeating this class, right? So let's just get this particular one done and then move on. So I hope that's the answer Becca was asking.
Yeah, she
Could you
confirmed.
put that back up again?
She did confirm. She
Okay,
did
good.
confirm that was the
And
question.
so in terms of family and stuff, everything said, because sometimes if you forget, yes, you're going to be reminded. But I want you to think that everything is working to bring you to the path of your greatest good,
Mm.
even when it doesn't feel like it. If you keep getting those recurring themes, if you keep ending up with people who keep abusing you, there is a lesson. And the question is, why? Okay. And sometimes in this particular lifetime, we're also meant to undo some of the things that had happened in other parallel existences that all share energy from each other. I mean, with each other, right? It is the reason why a lot of the healing that is occurring in the world right now is healing other lifetimes, is healing other things, generational stuff. You're not only doing the work for you, you're also doing the work for others that had come before you
Mm-hmm.
and others that will come after you. You're doing the work for your other self in the past, right? That will not have to go through that again.
Hmm.
That's a more advanced concept, but hopefully, that
Lovely.
helps.
Thank you. Lovely. And Becca just followed up. Absolutely, with these co-creators, I've taken those lessons and redirected to my path. I knew that I didn't like it, and now I'm on the path of what I like. So we're talking about
Excellent.
preference there.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
It's feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
once you accept that feedback back out, it's fun. And I would say, once we acknowledge it doesn't feel fun, It's not fun sometimes, but there is a greater reason, there's a greater purpose, and then you follow that path. May I kindly list the missions? I don't know that I have it all here, but this the ones that I had in my course notes.
Yeah,
First is
please.
a mission of change. Okay, these are the people that have a very strong desire to move their external world forward. Okay, it says this individual possesses a strong desire to look for ways to change and correct things, to correct flaws. Right, self-improvement is very common with these people. So it's an outward mission. A lot of times they have a mission to change the world, but they also have to change themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a mission of change in both directions. There's also the mission of exploration. Okay, it says these are the people who this mission is taken in order to give your soul maximum opportunity for real world experiences. It is quite common for people who are for explorers and adventurers. We realize the people who've visited every country in the world. You know, they're always traveling here, they're doing this, they're exploring that. That soul is just here to explore Earth, to just see what's going on here, right? So the mission of examination, these are the guys who are like the researcher, the person who will make 5 million flow charts for just one decision. If that's you, you're a mission of examination. It would behoove you to choose something that does not fall in line with that mission. Right? These are the people who are accountants and actuaries and all sorts of stuff. The numbers excite them. The mission of examination, your investigators will also fall into that category. There are others who are on the mission for control. These are the people who, you know, have a strong sense of control of themselves. So if you have a leader with a mission, so what you do is you stack a soul purpose, a soul type, and then the missions, right? So if you have someone could be a leader or a mission for change, they're going to be just trying to change. You could be a leader with a mission for connection, right? And then people just come to you, right? So it's when you stack these two things that you'll really start to see the picture. Others are in a mission of avoidance. There's some of these people, yes, these are the hermits. These are the people who are classic introverts. Like, it makes them happy to take a month into the mountains and not even be bothered by anyone. If you start a business that requires you seeing a bunch of people, you will be very unhappy, right? If you can create a business that gives you the opportunity to live out your mission. So I personally, I could be, you know, away from people for a whole month, you know, in a room reading books, and I'll have no problem, right? But that's not necessarily my mission, though. I don't seek out those opportunities, but there are people who do that. There is also the mission of healing, right? It says when directed outwards, it's aimed at making others feel better. When directed inwards, it is aimed at healing the self, right? There's a mission of reliance. Those who have chosen this mission seek to experience what it feels like to surrender or to be dependent on others. Many people are born with or end up in situations that warrant this, where they have to be dependent on another for their most basic human needs. There are many who cannot stand to be dependent, and thus this mission creates that experience, right? And forces the individual to accept and adapt and hopefully thrive. So if this soul has been living this life and I can't stand it, that's why our goal in each life, and honestly, my perspective on purpose has changed over the years, and I'll bring that in a little bit. Our goal should be to find balance, because where you're out of alignment the most is where your soul is probably going to send you to come experience the next. Right? If you say, oh my God, I cannot stand to do this, or I can't stand to do that, and you're so out of balance, right? Usually, in order for balance to occur, it creates another lifetime for you where you have to come live. So you're a wealthy person and you're like, oh my God, these peasants, you know,
Time to learn.
And then next life it says, I wonder what it feels like to be a peasant. It's not necessarily punishment. People think and they say, oh, you're getting punished. No, It's just experience.
Mm.
It's a contrasting experience. So the soul can gain the lessons from being in such abundance, and also gain the lessons from being in these experiences, because these experiences are what feeds the oversoul, right? All of it flows up into source. So
Nathan, it's been we're literally on the nose, but this has been,
Thank
as
you.
always, you've come with the fire. Guys, I do want to give you today's gift. I've got a visualization I created called Entering the Heart Space. It's about 5 minutes long, but it's been scientifically demonstrated to get you into heart coherence. Why is that important? Because from that space of silence and oneness, you can connect more with your soul, connect more with that voice of yourself, and start to listen to the voice of truth that's within you. I'd like to just bring back the quote that Nathan did put earlier. If you go east running for the sunset, you'll never find it. And that was by Rumi. Please do check out Nathan's website. Nathan, do you want to give us what the website is?
I do, but pardon me.
Yes.
That's not, I want to leave one point here because it's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will go through this life and not know what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
You may not really connect with anything. I want to tell you, over the years, the greatest wisdom that I've gained as far as purpose is concerned is that you're here to be a placeholder. You're here to hold the light. You're here to hold the vibration. And that vibration is what creates change. You're here to be the highest version vibrationally. Doesn't matter what you are professionally, vibrationally, to create this shift that we are witnessing here in this time space. There are a lot of people who have come into this life, who have evolved into this life right now, who are not really focused on anything else but to hold that vibration so humanity can rise. So if you focus on being the best, happiest, most joyful, most glorious, most loving version of you, you have fulfilled and accomplished that purpose, because that is the most important thing for humanity at this time.
So no matter what, be the best you can be?
Yes, no matter what, be the best you can be.
That's one of Nathan's taglines. I just looked up. So yeah, please do. Nathan, I've tagged you on the video, so you can maybe even hop in and pop that on there so people can connect with you. I've tagged Nathan in the description, so you should be able to connect with him. Join his group, Addicted to Purpose, where he shares little nuggets and short videos and so on and so forth. It's great stuff. Head over to dreamwithdan.com/HC to grab your gift. Back next week. I'm aiming to have another guest next week. Otherwise, it's going to be back to me on the mic, but you know what it is. As always, guys, remember that you can consciously choose a more abundant, joyful, purpose-driven life. Doing that in harmony with your soul's purpose is just going to be the best version of that. And if you don't know what your perfect purpose is, your purpose is to be you in the best possible way. And that alone will do more service than anything else.
Absolutely.
We've run over time, but thanks for indulging us. Nathan, thank you for making that last minute change and joining us. Thanks to everyone who joined in.
As Dan would do.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Thank you for joining us live. I appreciate everyone that's joined in the comments and made this show what it is. Much love to you guys. Back next week for another episode of Beyond Magic.
Thank you.